Okay, so let's now start on Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. Uh, Yud Gimel Amud Aleph, 13a, and we're up to the Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, Ein Loichin, we're talking about Chalamoyed. You're not allowed to make big purchases on Chalamoyed, such as homes, Batim, homes. Abodim is servants, Ubehema, or animals. The exception is if you need it for Yontif. Only if you need it for the Yontif. If you need it for the Yontif, that's okay. So that is as far as buying goes. If you need the house, you need the slave, you need the animal for Yontif, you can go and buy it. You're not allowed to just buy it, but if you need it for Yontif, then it's okay. What about selling? What about the seller? I guess the buyer can buy it from a non-Jew. Doesn't have to buy it from a Jew. So therefore, is no restriction, because if you have to buy it from a Jew, how is he going to buy it for Yontif if nobody's going to sell it to him? But sometimes it says or for the need of the seller. Say the seller needs money to buy food for Yontif, right? So that's also a legitimate reason. Either you need the property, you need the item for Yontif, or you need money for Yontif. How do you get money for Yontif? You sell something. So you can sell a house on Eved Abahema if you need it. You need the money for Yontif. But the Mishnah adds 4 more words. She'ein loy ma yoichal. So that means literally he doesn't have what to eat. If he's not going to sell and bring in some money, he won't be able to buy food. That means she'ein loy ma yoichal. He doesn't have what to eat. So he's allowed to sell. Okay. So the Gemara wants to know, that's the Mishnah. The Gemara wants to know, there's one thing you're selling to, there's one thing you selling so that you have money to buy food. That's one thing. But what about, let's say there is a worker that needs money for food. Can you give him a job on Chalamoyed so that he can buy food? It's not you buying food, so when you're selling it so that you can have food. But in this case, is to give somebody else. So he's doing a job for you. He's doing something that you don't need for Yontif, and you're not allowed to really do it. But you're getting it done for Yontif because the other guy needs to make a living. Are we going to allow you to pay the other guy to work for you so that he can have money? No, in the meantime, you're getting your house painted or whatever. You're getting things done. But so the Gemara says, Boy minei Rava mirab Nachman. So Rava asked for Rav Nachman. Schar pe'ula she'ein loy ma yochel. The pay for a job that the worker doesn't have what to eat. Are you allowed to pay him so he does work for you? In the meantime, he's doing work on Chalamayit. Schar pula she'en lo ma yochel, zokt Rashi. Schar pula she'en lo ma yochel, she'en lo lepoel ma yochel. The worker doesn't have what to eat. So the question is, Mahu, what is the din? Mahu, sheyitin loy melacha u'l'soichre. Can you give him work and to hire him? Now, normally that work you wouldn't be allowed to do, because if you're allowed to do the work, there wouldn't be a problem. What's the problem? If you can do the work, let him pay. But here, Are you allowed to give him work because we're making an allowance sometimes when it's needed for the Yom Tov? In this case, you don't need it, but the poor worker needs it. Are you allowed to give him work and to hire him so he has what to eat? So that was what the Rabbi asked of Rab Nachman. Amalei, so Rab Nachman answers him back, Tanina, that's already the case in our Mishnah. Because if you start analyzing the Mishnah, these four words, I pointed it out when we were learning, she'ein lo mayochal, seem to be extra. The only reason we allow to buy, that the Mishnah starts off, it's only l'tzorech hamoyed. So if it would have just said, oy l'tzorech hamoycher, if the moicher needs it, that would mean l'tzorech hamoyed, or the need of the moicher. Either the buyer needs it, or the moicher needs the money for it. Why does the Mishnah add she'ein lo mayochal? So he's trying to say, if somebody doesn't have what to eat, that's in addition for you allowing to make your own money, you can give somebody else work so he has what to eat. So Amar Lei, so Rab Nachman answers Rave, Tanina, we learned it in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Oy l'tzoyrech hamoicher, says she'ein lo mayochel, he has not what to eat. So he asks him, La'asu yimai. So what is he coming to include when he says he doesn't have what to eat? We already know, Rashi says, if it means that it doesn't have what to eat, the seller has nothing what to eat. So we don't have to say that. It says that the buyer is l'tzorech hamoyed. That Mishnah is coming to include schar pe'ula she'ein le'mayochel, the payment for a job of someone who doesn't have what to eat, the mutter that is permissible. So we don't listen to the Mishnah. So lav, is it then not? La sui schar pe'ula, to coming to include that you can pay for the work of a worker to do on Chol HaMoed. One thing is for you to sell the house or whatever because you need for yourself, tzorech hamoed, and the other one is to have somebody else allow him to do work in your house so he has money for the Yom Tov. Amar Lei, he says, no. Rava says it's not a proof from the Mishnah because it's not a new case. It's only Perushiko Mefarish. He's articulating it. He's explaining what does it mean, Tzorech hamoyed. L'tzorech hamoyed ketzad. What does it mean you're selling for the Yom Tov? Why do you need to sell it for the Yom Tov? Kigoyin she'ein le'moicher mayochal. The seller doesn't know what to eat, he can sell. But ula oilam le'tifshet minei mino l'schar pe'ula. But you cannot resolve from this case what the din would be to pay a worker that doesn't have what to eat and let him do work in your house or for you on Chol HaMoed. So he says maybe no. So now Abaye gets involved. He's going to ask a question from another Bryce. Eisve Abaye. So Abaye asked the question. The Bryce that says en koisvin shtori choiv b'moyed. You're not allowed to write IOUs, documents that you owe money on Chol HaMoed. So the transaction, if you are taking out a loan, you can just take out the loan on Chol HaMoed, but you can't write the lender, you can't write him an IOU. Ashtar Choiv HaMoed, you're not allowed. So But what happens? The lender, you have a prohibition that you don't want to write on Chalamoyed, but the guy is not going to give you the money if you're not going to give him. If you're not going to give him a document, he's not going to give you the money. So if he doesn't trust him, he doesn't believe him. Who Rashi says the malva loiva, the lender doesn't trust the loiva, and then he gives another scenario, or a case she'ein loy mayochal, or he doesn't have what to eat. Over here, how are we going to translate she'ein loy mayochal? We already said if he doesn't trust him, doesn't matter if he has what to eat or doesn't have what to eat. A person is allowed to baramon and chalamoyed. That's allowed. And if the guy doesn't trust him, even if he has what to eat, technically, if he doesn't believe you, and if he does believe you, so there's no reason to write. So what does it mean over here? The Bryce says, "Oy she'ein loy mayochal harizeh yichted." So we're going to learn if a person doesn't have what to eat, but let's say you have a scribe. His job, he writes for people. But if you're saying chalamoid, you can't write, so he doesn't have work. So he doesn't have what to eat. So then you can have him write for you, even if you don't have a heter for yourself, because you don't need it. But in order to help the scribe, you can do so. That's what the Gemara wants to learn.
So does that mean,
Yeah?
so you go to take a loan, and so you're paying the scribe to write. So you could pay the scribe to write. You can't write something, but you could pay the scribe to write it, so you can get the loan on Chol Moed. Or there's two separate cases.
Or yeah, but that would be for the purpose of giving the scribe his living. All right, giving him some parnosa. But I think in the first case,
you need that to get the loan.
You'll write it yourself, an IOU. You don't need necessarily a scribe for it. You can write an IOU. You need a scribe to write tefillin and mezuzahs, maybe, or a get, or something like that. Now, I think when it says same thing, like it says
two separate cases.
You don't believe him, so then you can write. Who's going to write it? The scribe. Why would the scribe be allowed to write it? That's another question. Forget about scribe has a good living, he doesn't have to work on it. You have a problem. You need a loan. And the guy won't give it to you without a document. Can somebody else help you out and write for you so that you can borrow the money? Now the other one is going to do the writing on Chalamoyed so that you can get the money. We allowed you, if the lender doesn't trust you, we allowed you to write. But the question is it only for yourself, or can you get somebody else to write? Even if the guy doesn't have a need to write, he doesn't need the money for it. But if you need a scribe to write it, you can't get somebody else to write it. If we're allowing you, we're going to allow this scribe too. Now, normally we say, we don't tell a person you sin so the other one will have a benefit. Here we're telling the scribe to write for the other yid so that he can get his loan, because the guy won't loan him the money. But anyways, that's not the case that the Gemara is talking about. The Gemara is talking about where the scribe himself needs a job because he needs to feed his family for Chalamoyed. So what is he going to do? So we said that we allow him. He doesn't have what to eat. If we're trying to say that the loiva, we're allowing the loive to write because the loive doesn't have what to eat. So that's why he's allowed to write a document of the loan. But that's not true. Before we said, just if he doesn't believe him, he can write already the document. He didn't need an excuse because he didn't have what to eat. He said, if he doesn't believe him, you can write. You don't need the loiva to be in a situation that he doesn't have what to eat in order for him to write, in order to write the document, because it says that if you don't believe me, you could write. It's permissible. Now, we can't say that he needs it because that means because there was no tzorech here. The Hachim Misrami Milsa, maybe we're talking about it happened in such a case that the reason why he is actually wants him to do it is because he wants him to he needs for the food to eat. So the Arish is la milsi. You don't need to only because you can't eat. You are permitted, regardless, you are permitted to write it if he doesn't believe you. If the lender won't give you the money without writing, without a document, then it's okay for you to do. All right. Let's get here back. So the Rashi says, La Bilsi, this is not really a good question. Why? Because the mutab it's permissible without it. You don't have to be in a condition in order to write. So therefore, what does it mean? So it must be including that you're allowed to hire somebody and pay him for the work. He doesn't have what to eat. So you can go ahead and you can write just to give him business. You're allowed to. So Gemara says, it's a good proof. So now we have another rabbi getting involved, Rav Sheshes. Most Rav Sheshes, so Rav Sheshes asked the question. The Chachamim say that, like this, there is a question after Chatzos, Pesach, you don't do work. But before Chatzos, there's different opinions. Mokim Shenogu, some places they do, some they don't. But the Gemara says, it brings down quoting, Chachamim says there are three craftspeople that everybody agrees in all customs they can do work. Erev Pesach until midday they can do. The tailors, hachayotim, the tailors, v'asaporim and the barbers, v'akoipsim, those who wash clothes. What's the reason? Hachayotim, what's the reason for the tailors? Because an ordinary person who's not a tailor is allowed to sew together, which means a non-professional sewer, normally on Chol Shel Moed. So since Chol Shel Moed, which is more strict, Chol Moed, not doing work, and Chol Moed is more strict than Erev Pesach. So an ordinary person is allowed to do work, allowed to so on Chol Shemayit. Because it's a non-professional work, the ordinary person can do, means that a tailor can do an Erev Pesach as well. What's the reason for the barbers and the launderers? Shekain, we also find that on Chol HaMoed there is a leniency for barbers and launderers. Shekain aboyim medina sayam. Somebody comes from overseas on Chol HaMoed, or vayetze bebeis hasurim, or he happens to get out of prison on Chol HaMoed. So the halacha is that mutarim lesaper ulechapes b'chol shel moed. This is driving me crazy.
You got to uninstall it.
What do I have to uninstall?
Do you use that antivirus?
It's a virus.
Yeah, it's. I think it's just the antivirus trying to sell you more. It's not finding something.
I'm going to try.
Is it like someone? Is it just to wash clothes that are for Yontif, or is it? Yeah, I mean,
to wash clothes for Yont. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like I could just bring my
No, just to wash clothes for Yont.
To pick up after Yontif.
So it seems like if there is an allowance, even under special circumstances, like when you come overseas or you're going out of prison, and there's an allowance to wash on Chol HaMoed, then even without the allowance, will allow you to do it on Erev Pesach, because Erev Pesach is lenient, so we can allow that. And the same thing is for sewing. Okay. So the Gemara thinks now the key for allowing it is to find a way that you can do it a malacha on Chol HaMoed. And we found tailors, barbers, and launderers doing malacha through special circumstances. So the Gemara says, well, every work, if he doesn't have what to eat, we just said, a worker can do any work. So you have a circumstance on Chol HaMoed where a worker can do any job he does. And it's allowed. So therefore, in Erev Pesach, you can do anything. Frag the Gemara. That to get paid for work, if he doesn't have what to eat, is permissible. So all jobs should be permissible. There is the pay for work for a person that doesn't have what to eat, so you can do all the jobs on Chol HaMoed. So then you should be able to do it on Erev Pesach. Why? Because you allow the pay according to the opinion of Rava. So you should resolve from it that you cannot do work. You're not allowed to do, not have a worker do work, even if he doesn't have what to eat on Chol HaMoed. And that's why otherwise it would be no Isser. So Rapapa did not accept it. Maskiv law, Rapapa. So Rapapa got involved and he challenged Rav Shesh's question. Ad Rav Shesh's parach zogt Rashi. Mit der parach ma'aydet nan sholish u'munus oisim malacha b'erev pesachim. Since he asked a question from this Mishnah that says that there are three crafts can do malacha b'erev Pesach, almost savar. So we see that he holds kol malacha sherashoyat las b'chel shemoid oisim b'erev Pesach. So that he holds that any malacha that you're allowed to do in Chol HaMoed, you're allowed to do in Erev Pesach. So Rav Papa said, if that's allowance, elama'ato binyan lishtari. Erev Pesach are even allowed to make a building. Shekain, we can even find. So he says even more than all the jobs, but we can even build on Erev Pesach. Shekain koisel hagoy l'rshus harabim. Because if you have a wall that is tilting into the Shrabim, that is falling down, we learned in the Mishnah earlier, you can throw it down in building normally, because of the danger. And if you can build in a Chel Shamoid, you're allowed to do it in a Pesach. Maskiv lo Rabina. And Rabina asked another question. Sabanami ke Rapapa. He also agrees with Rapapa. Let's allow an Erev Pesach for a scribe. Shekain koisvin kedusha nashim v'gitim shevrim. We said a scribe is not allowed to write only for if he has in certain circumstances. Shekain koisvin kedusha nashim shevrim. Elo Rabashi. But Rabashi says like this. Moed arba also karamis. You ask a question for what you can do on Cholamayid for Erev Pesach. Moed, the reason why we're not allowed to do in Yontiv, mishum tirchayi. That's because it's trouble. We don't want you to trouble yourself on Yontiv. Mokum pseida shor rabbanon. Where there is a loss, the rabbis allowed it. Arba also, the reason why the rabbis don't want you to do work on the 14th is mishum tzedek yomtevu. That is because the needs of Yom Tov. Only thing they allowed is these three professions. If he doesn't have what to eat, they ain't tzorich Yom Tov godel mizeh. Midid tzorich Yom Tov shor rabbanon, something which is for the need of Yom Tov the rabbanon allowed. Midid lav tzorich Yom Tov le shor rabbanon, the rabbanon didn't allow. Okay, Mr. Shem, see everybody.